Hi, everyone, and thank you very much to Michael and Madeline for inviting us to be part of this amazing conference. Okay, so our paper today, Ecologies of Duration, Thinking, Imaging, Geotime with Drones. Ecologies of Duration is a work conceived for both physical installation and online mode. And obviously, due to the nature of a pandemic, you're just seeing an online version. Continuing our preoccupation with duration and felt experience, we use drones to delve into what we call geotime, an exploration of time and perception through the lenses of water and land as forces situated outside humans' short moment in geological time. The Anthropocene and its very material planetary crisis is forged in this very divergence between human and planetary scales. We want to ask how drones might sit within this tension of time and scale. How might they sense the planetary and its terrain in ways that register and imagine Earth and temporalities alongside, yet more than, a spectacular imaging of crisis? So we've been exploring duration and perception. We've been exploring duration and perception as complex, messy, felt registrations of experience, registering via a drone's attempts to stay with, caress, move alongside water and earth. At the same time, we draw on drones' visually uncanny, stabilizing and distancing cinematic possibilities, along with their status as sensors of high-dimensional data, seeking ways in which they might help register the dynamics between timescales that both involve and exceed us. We consider new ways of working with drone cinematography and soundscapes, from filming in close proximity to trace geoformations, developing techniques in which the moving image appears to both zoom in and recede from its target, and capturing data in visually obscured natural circumstances, such as fog or mist. Our next foray will be using gyroscope and accelerometer data from our drone flight logs to sonify drones hovering.
Anna, sorry to interrupt. Could you just, and Michelle, just turn the volume down slightly?
Yep.
It's hard to tell. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll finish that last sentence. Our next foray will be using gyroscopes and accelerometer data from our drone flight logs to sonify a drone's hovering in relation to environmental conditions encountered, such as wind current.
And that bit of footage was from another part of the Ecologies of Duration installation. However, in the hands of visual and conceptual artists, drone cinematography and artwork has predominantly developed along two lines of intervention. Either wrest ownership of the aerial perspective from state and extra-state actors, or deploy that point of view to develop a more planetary perspective. In works as diverse as Edward Batinsky's photographic contributions to the Anthropocene project or Forensic Architecture's Drone Strikes platform, the drone's cinematic eye is locked upon land and planet in a representation of colonialist cartographic and remote sensing visual strategies. Of course, it may precisely be such perspectives as lenses of scopic and political regimes that artists wish to critique or into which they attempt to tactically intervene. Yet as varied and incisive as much of this interventionist photographic and moving image practice has been, a fixation on an aerialised perspective continues that the steadied cam drift of drone imaging affords us to see. In order then to register proximity over remoteness, a proximity to terrain, we have sought to find ways to work imagistically, and then later we'll be working with drone data and its sonification, to register a more terrain-hugging form of drone cinematography. In working against the scopic regime of the distant aerial view, we try to work with drones in two ways. First, as a machine agent capable not only of tracking and targeting, but potentially also of gesturing, in the sense that Erin Manning proposes as reaching toward. Manning describes touch as a relational encounter that alters and displaces spatialities and temporalities. Might it be possible to speculate around a politics of touch as relation, in which the encounter between drone and planet could be understood as a reaching toward terrain that becomes, rather than is targeted, through an encounter with an autonomous but also processual system? Here we take into account that the aerial surveillance gaze is not the only visual gesture available to drones. Indeed, hovering and the capture of eventless imaging and images comprise the bulk of drone image data. Now, we're not, of course, romanticising the possibilities of a more processual visuality, and we do remain cognizant of the ongoing ingression of militarisms into such flows of imagistic data. But if, secondly, the drone is an assemblage in which the camera is but one sensor among an array of gyroscopes, barometers, accelerometers, and so on, and this is a point that was discussed in the earlier panel today, this morning, on drone sensors, and it's been brought up by other speakers as well. This does make the camera as sensor a particular kind of technical object. The drone camera as sensor produces what the filmmaker Harun Farocki called operational images, which you and I talked about this morning as well. That is, images made by machines for machines. The increasing use of drones to sense environmental data raises an interesting question about how to think about the environmental terrains and ecologies that are being rendered by such sensing. What if, following Jennifer Gabriza's arguments about webcams as environmental sensors, we conceive the drone as sensor that both generates and attends to environments? Here we would need to think about drones not as simply entering into environments that pre-exist, and especially in their conservation use, as simply recording through non-invasive means states of nature.
So in Ecologies of Duration, we work with ways in which drones might sense, gesture, and generate their environments through machine terrain encounters. In the work, a multiplicity of ecologies endlessly flow in and out of each other and converge both on screen and sonically. Each video channel is its own ecology, imaging firescapes, drought, and flood as traces of the larger duration of climate change. Rather than the spectacular images of climate crisis that drones often bring us of icebergs melting, our terrains are proximate and often directly eventless. Very little happens as we register the aftermath of crisis. Yet each ecology is environmentally operating as an exception to an acknowledged disturbance ecology, tracing the disturbance of disturbance ecologies. Importantly, disturbance ecologies in environmental science have been considered as part of a relatively stable regime when mapped over extended periods of time and are known as historical disturbance regimes. However, dramatic changes in climate have meant that disturbance ecologies have become more severe, erratic in behaviour, and harder to predict. Usual and documented cycles of disturbance in environments are increasingly radically disrupted. Ecologies of Duration tries to find ways in which drones might become necessary technologies for witnessing the disturbance of disturbance ecologies, within whose multiple and non-linear durations make them difficult to register. The ecologies presented in the work form a multiplicity of views on a planetary scene or scape, scrambling direction, left, right, backwards, forwards, shifting perspective and point of view, in, out, depth, surface, and seem caught in a portion between stillness and movement. From these experimental techniques, we asked drones to
Sorry, Michele.
Yeah, it keeps going back.
Again.
Sorry. Okay, I'll just start that sentence again. It likes to override me. The ecologies presented in the work form a multiplicity of views on a planetary scene or scape, scrambling direction left, right, backwards, forwards, shifting perspective and point of view, in, out, depth, surface, and seem caught in a torsion between stillness and movement. From these experimental techniques, we asked drones to start from a non-human, non-aerial perspective, to imagine and image an earth and time with which we are impossibly entangled and necessarily estranged, and in which drones at every level, including their militarism, are always already implicated. Thank you.